Hello children, good morning. We are going to study the second poem of the main course book Flamingo. The title of the poem is An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. This poem is written by Stephen Spender. This poem deals with social injustice and class inequality. Let us study this poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. At first, the introduction of the poem. And let us see with what theme this poem deals with. In this poem, Spender depicts the injustice which prevails in society. So it talks of social injustice and class inequalities, denial of opportunities to slum dwellers, and also expresses his thoughts on the widening gap between the rich and the poor. The kind of injustice that is done to the people belonging to lower strata of our society. That is what is social injustice. And there is a class inequality. What does it mean? There are two classes, rich class and poor class. So there is class inequality. As a result of that, those who are poor, they remain poorer, and those who are rich, they become richer. He somewhere or the other seems to be hitting hard at the capitalist economy, which helps the rich to get richer and the poor poorer. So here is a social activist, and he is a socialist, and therefore he criticizes the capitalist economy, which is widening the gap between the rich and the poor. The civil rights movement in America had gained pace, and Spender's poem supports that when he exposes the condition of the haves and the have-nots. The poem lucidly brings forth the miserable condition of the children of the slum and the inadequate educational facilities provided to them. The poem talks of racial discrimination and is a socialist proclamation that a country can prosper only if education reaches to the downtrodden in the society. This poem is written by Stephen Spender. Now, Stephen Spender was an English poet and essayist who took keen interest in politics. That's why you'll find political tone in this poem. He was a socialist. He took interest in the socialist school of thought, which explains his stance regarding the paradox of teaching elementary school children in a slum. His belief, as strongly recorded in the poem An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, is that it is mere wish fulfillment to think that you can teach children on an empty stomach. So what he says, it is very important for these children to provide enough food before they get education. So survival is a very important, and one has to look after the children. Stephen Spender became disillusioned by his tryst with socialism, and he wrote about this disillusionment in an essay written by him in a book titled The God That Failed. So now you know about Stephen Spender, an English poet and essayist who believed in socialism, and this poem deals with social injustice. Before we study this poem in detail, Let us know what the poem deals with. What is the theme of this poem? The theme of this poem is social justice and class inequalities. Now, social justice, those people who are living in slum, who will take care of those children? They don't get enough food to eat. How can we educate them? Those children who are malnourished, how will they pay attention in the class? Need to improve the living conditions for children in the slums. It is not that it's education that is very important. First of all, we have to take care of their living conditions. We have to take care of how they can lead life like us. It is very important to provide living conditions. Now, the form of this poem. This poem is written in free verse. So there is no particular rhyme scheme, but it is written in free verse. This is the second poem in the main course book Flamenco. The title of this poem is An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. An elementary school classroom in a slum. This poem is written by Stephen Spender, who was an English poet and essayist. He left University College Oxford without taking a degree and went to Berlin in 1930. So, without taking formal degree, he has gone to Germany in the year 1930. He was very much influenced by the philosophy of socialism, and he took keen interest in politics and called himself to be a socialist and pacifist. Now, who is a socialist person? The one who believes in the ideology of socialism. And pacifist, the one who loves peace, who advocates peace, who is against war and violence. So the person who is committed for peace is pacifist. Books by Spender include Poems of Dedication, The Edge of Being, The Creative Element, The Struggle of the Modern, and an autobiography, World Within World. In an elementary school classroom in a slum, he has concentrated on themes of social injustice and class inequalities. So here the theme is social injustice, the kind of injustice that is done to lower strata of people in society, and class inequalities, haves and have-nots. So those people who are poor, the way they suffer, and the kind of class differences are there in the society. Before you read, there is a question that is posed. Have you ever visited or seen an elementary school in a slum? What does it look like? So before we start the poem, reflect over this question. Let us study the first stanza of the poem. Far, far from gusty waves the children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor. The tall girl with a weighed down head, the paper-seeming boy with rat eyes, the stunted, unlucky hair of twisted bones reciting a father's gnarled disease. His lesson from his desk, at back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrels' game in tree room. Other than this, now let's take up some of those difficult words that we have come across here in this poem. Now, gusty, very strong. So here, strong wind is blowing there, and here, as a result of that, we can see those gusty waves. So here, because of strong wind, gusty waves are there, and here that energy, that strength, that is what is lacking in the case of the children. And now here, rootless weeds. Weeds are unwanted. Weeds are unwanted. Plants. Now here, as if the children are unwanted plants. Now they are pallor, pale. So very pale face, very dull face. Stunted. What does stunted mean? Undeveloped. Not fully grown or developed. Unlucky, unfortunate. Now here, gnarl disease. Now he inherits the disease. That's a gnarl disease. Now he is inheriting gnarl disease. That means knotted disease here is hands or legs, they are bane. So that's why gnarl disease here. So he is inheriting that disease from his father. He doesn't get the property, but what he gets is the disease what his father was suffering from, because he is malnourished. And there is a classroom which is very, very dim. So there is a place where it's a very, very dim there, and there one sweet and young child who is not noticed by anybody is sitting there unnoticed, unnoticed by anybody. So let's go to this poem now once again. Far, far from gusty waves, the children's faces. Now the children's faces, they appear to be without any energy. They don't appear to be very energetic. The children who are sitting there, they don't appear to be very energetic. Like rootless weeds, as if they are unwanted. As if they are unwanted, rootless. So they can be just removed and thrown away. They are as if useless. The hair torn round their pallor. So here nobody has combed their hair properly. So they are here, the children whose faces are very dull, without any energy. So they are not full of energy like other children, because they are malnourished, and the children have been compared with what? The children have been compared with unwanted weeds. So that is what is simile, like rootless weeds. Simile, like is used. The tall girl with a weighed down head, and this tall girl who is sitting there, she is totally burdened and her head is down. She appears to be quite burdened, probably with work, and her head is down. The paper skimming boy. So there is a boy who is very thin as paper. And how are his eyes? Rat's eyes. Rat often looks for food. So here is a metaphor here. Rat's eyes. So looking for what? Looking for food. So here is a boy who is quite thin, who is very hungry, malnourished, looking for food. The stunted, unlucky hair of twisted bones. So his bones are twisted, and he has got his father's gnarl disease. So the bones have been twisted now because he has been malnourished, and he has inherited the disease from his father. And he is reciting his lesson from his desk. At back of the dim class, there at the back, so there is a boy who is sitting there. And this boy appears to be totally different from all other children. How he is different from all other children? He is a sweet boy, young boy, and he has got eyes, in his eyes, dreams. And what is he doing? He is looking out, enjoying squirrel's game. In tree room, that's in the hole of the tree, and he is looking outside and enjoying that game, and he is dreaming about it. So this boy is different from all other boys, and he is not noticed by anybody else. So that means Though they are sitting there, there can be somebody who can dream, who can enjoy the nature. So it's talking about these boys. Yes, among them also they are there. But you look at the conditions of the children who are there in that particular classroom. Now let us move on to the second stanza. On sour cream walls donations, Shakespeare's head cloudless at dawn, civilized dome riding all cities. Build flowery Tyrolese valley, open-handed map awarding the world it's a world. And yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their future is painted with a fog. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of birds. So here, the children who are living in slum. Now they are there in the classroom where the walls have turned sour. So now the poet is describing the walls of the school. They are cream in color and they are faded. That's why they are looking like that. The walls are not very clean. They have not been painted recently. So they have been painted long back. They have been faded. And what do we find there? The list of those people who have donated to build the school. And we find Shakespeare's head. What does it mean? It's a Shakespeare's portrait. So that is hanging there. Literary figure. A great genius. Now his portrait is hanging there. But these children, though they are getting education, they have not been developed. Cloudless at dawn, and there you can find a photograph of sunrise. Cloudless at dawn, early morning, civilized dome riding all cities, and you also find photograph of the buildings that show the development. Now people are enjoying nature's beauty. People enjoy literary beauty. People are developing. So lot of development is taking place. And this is what is the civilization. But what about the children who are there in the slums? What about their condition? Not only that, build flowery Tyrolese valley, which is there in Australia. So beautiful photograph of that Tyrolese valley where we find flowers. Open-handed map awarding the world it's a world. So here, now here where there is a picture of Shakespeare and then there is a rising sun at the horizon at the daybreak. Then you find there picture of famous Tyrolese valley which is in Australia. It has beautiful flowers. So all beautiful things we find there on the wall. Open-handed map awarding the world it's a world. Now the map is open-handed. It's developing. The map shows the kind of development that has taken place in the world, and it's awarding the world what the world is worth it. But as far as these children are concerned, is it the real world for these children what they find there outside? Is it a beautiful world for these small children who are living in the slum? Their world is not beautiful. And for these children, these windows, not this map, their world. And when they look from these windows of their classroom, what they see is their world. Not this map. This map will not show the right thing. It will not show the kind of conditions that are there in the slum. So this map will not award their world, where all their future is painted with a fog, and they have got very foggy future, very unclear future, and their future is full of darkness. It's all painted with a fog. It's a foggy future, it's not bright future. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. So the streets which are there, the path they are following, it's all narrow. And the sky is lead. So here the sky is lead. Again, that shows that it is not a bright future that they are going to have. And their world is far, far away from beautiful rivers, caves, and beautiful stars of words. So literary world, it's all going to be away from all that kind of world. So whatever it is there in the literature, whatever development we have seen in the world that has not reached to these slum areas, they are living in very bad condition, and therefore the poet makes a kind of appeal in later stanzas. Now here, let's see the example of metaphor. Now here walls are described to be dull as sour cream. So sour cream walls. So that's an example of metaphor. Now here the future of kids is described as limited when the poet says narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. So it's also metaphorically written there. So it's an example of metaphor. And here again there is a repetition of the word far, far, far. Today we have studied two stanzas of the poem An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, written by Stephen Spender. We will take up next two stanzas of this poem tomorrow. Thank you.